Okay, hello again, it's me, Mandala, and I'm back to do another video for Guild Wars 2 Buildcraft. And today I actually wanted to do a different kind of video, which is to spotlight some comparisons between two different Reaper builds, and just talk a little bit about the Reaper build I just made and shared a video for last, which has now been followed up by the community with some more videos of actually pretty decent Reaper builds, and so I wanted to take the time to compare my Reaper build with one of these Reaper builds, um, to explain why I came to the decisions I came to in terms of like the damage output and the survivability and the weapon choices, and why I think, in my personal opinion, my build is a little bit better even than these also great builds that came out recently. And so the build I wanted to highlight is my Death Magic Reaper build. So that this is the build that I'm comparing on my side of the equation. So this is the full Selly, Great Runes, Staff, Great Sword, and then I've made one minor change, which I've changed one of the Superior Sigils of Celerities to Superior Sigil of Rage here, just to maximize quickness uptime. You really don't need either of these if you understand how the build works, but it's just good to have this wiggle room, I think, on open world. So strength Rage on the staff, and then strength Celerity on the Great Sword, and then again it's just full Selly, Relic of the Reaper. Um, as far as traits, we're taking Spite, we're taking Bitter Chill, Chill of Death, Dread, Death Magic, Putrid Defense, Deadly Strength, Corruptor's Fervor, and then Reaper we're taking Chilling Nova, Soul Leader, and Deathly Chill. And then for the utilities we're taking Your Soul is Mine. This is a flex utility, but I've recommended taking Spectral Walk for open world play here. You are all weaklings, nothing can save you, and Chill to the Bone, so shouts to play well with our stuff. And so this is the build that I shared a video for recently that did pretty well. I think it's a really strong build and I really like it, and I've been playing it a lot in open world regular. Like when I log in, this is the build I'm playing recently. And so I wanted to compare it to one of the builds that Lord Hizen shared, which is a similar leveraging of the Death Magic trait line on this Selly Condi Reaper, but it does a few different things with it. So I'm going to go over his build a little bit, and I might link the video this comes from in the description, so just for full transparency. But it's also Death Magic Reaper Condi, and so he's also in full Selly, but the alterations are that he's running Superior Rune of the Trapper, and he's running Scepter, Torch, Pistol, Dagger, and I've made one minor adjustment that I'll talk about later, is so he runs Strength and Frailty sigils on both of these weapon sets, but I'm running Strength and Agony sigils because I have different standards for open world buildcraft testing, and one of those things is that I don't use expensive foods and utilities, and I don't use infusions, and he was leveraging very heavily the expertise you get from infusions and from food and utilities to hit a certain condition duration cap, and so I've traded the frailty sigils with these agony sigils, which works out almost perfectly to get us an extra 20% bleed duration. Once I do the only food that I do allow myself to use, which is the free food, this Feast of Delectable Birthday Cake. Again, because I think you shouldn't use utilities in open world. I think they're expensive and they incentivize you to like be mean, kind of, and like be in a hurry all the time because you're more efficient the faster you go if you're using expensive utilities, and which I don't like, and so I don't recommend using them. I think they're too expensive to use in open world and you don't need them. So I just use the free food, and if I can't use the free food, I use nothing. So um, yeah. So anyway, so back to his build. So what he's doing differently is firstly is again these weapon changes. Like he's switching to more traditional condi weapons. Is his first change. Again, he's also switching the rune to something a little more aggressive. They're really both, the crate rune and the trap rune are really similar. This is just, you'll see in a minute why this works better for the trait lines he's picked. And then he's also running Relic of the Chronomancer to allow us to take all the wells. So we're taking 4 wells in our utilities. And so that paired with Chilled with the Bone is how he's generating quickness on this build instead of taking the Spite line. And so if we go into the traits now, instead of Spite, he's taking Curses, and he's running Chilling Darkness, Parasitic Contagion, and Lingering Curse. And then the Death Magic, he's running the same things: Putrid Defense, Deadly Strength, Corruptor's Fervor. And then in the Reaper trait line, he's doing it a little differently again because he lost the Spite line, he needs Might from somewhere, and so what he's elected to do is take Chilling Victory. So he's running Chilling Nova, which I was also running, and instead of Soul Eater, he's running Chilling Victory, and then he's also running Deathly Chill. And so I wanted to take these two builds and compare them side by side with my own standards of testing Buildcraft and see what the differences are and explain why I like my build a little bit better even than this build, even though I think this is good build. These builds weren't out when I did my first video, when I said that there weren't any good Reaper builds out for open world, but these builds are good. But I still wanted to go in and explain why I still like my build more. And again, this is not like to flame anybody or to like be like, ooh, I'm the best. It's not about that. It's just about explaining my reasoning for why I'm recommending the build that I'm recommending, and not something more similar to this Chronomancer Relic build. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to my build, and I'm going to test them both on the Golem with the regular settings that I'm doing to show you the damage output under my conditions. So if you watch the Hizen video, his damage for this build, he says it's like 18.8k, right? So, but it's going to be a lot lower in my hands because I'm not using expensive utilities and infusions, and so I've had to make slight adjustments to it in its favor. To be honest, the removing the frailty actually is in its favor, I think, but it's going to do lower damage because we're not using expensive foods and utilities. So you'll see a different number. It's also because I'm not grinding this and I'm just comparing how they play in my hands. I am a decently skilled player, so it's not like I'm just like terrible at his build and that's the reason why you're seeing the number go down. That's not the reason. It's because I'm using less supplemental utilities and consumables. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show the builds now real quick. I'm gonna mute myself, and the first one I'm gonna do is my build, which is the Death Magic with the Spite line. I'm gonna demo this build, and then I'm gonna go and demo Hizen's build. So I'm gonna set the Golem up real fast, and then we're gonna do that. Alright, so there you see with my build, it's like right at 14. I've hit a little higher. I think I messed up a little bit on the front end with the timing of the Reaper's Mark into Terrify, and so I got less quickness, and so that's a little bit of the damage. I've been hitting around like 14.1, 14.2 when I've been testing it with this current setup. Alright, and so another thing that I wanted to do is leverage this a bit more to show you that it can do more damage. So if you wanted to do more damage, you can change Spectral Walk to Well of Darkness. So I'm going to demo the build again, and you're going to see the damage number go up when I put it fully in like full damage mode, basically, where you're not taking this extra utility that lowers the damage output. So I'm going to demo it with that, and then we're going to move to Hizen's build, and I'm going to show you what that damage looks like in my hands without some of his supplemental consumables. So we're going to demo this build one more time, and then we're going to do his. Okay, and I actually messed up pretty bad there. The damage does go up more than that. I just was did some weird stuff with it, but I've been hitting around like 15, so it's about like a 1k to 800 damage increase when I put the Well of Darkness there instead of the Spectral Walk. But as you can see, even when I mess up really bad, the damage goes up. So the next thing I want to do is test Heisen's build and show you that. And the first thing I'm going to say is it does do more damage, right? That is going to be true. So it is going to do more damage. Another thing it's going to do is it actually is going to be more sustain as well as more damage. All right, but it's not very much more damage, and the sustain should be significantly better, but the sustain on the build is already crazy. So like the tankiness of my build is already really good. So
Hi there. Use the console to begin combat testing.
all right, so
if you have any inquiries, come speak to
now I'm
me.
going to demo Heisen's build, right? And so it's a little different. We're not going to be in Shroud as much. We're basically just using Shroud for the strong 5 and 4 skills, and then the fear, and then getting out of it. We're in our like regular weapons a lot longer, and we're going to be using these wells to get our quickness, right? So um, it's a bit different playstyle, and so I'm just going to demo it real fast and show you what the damage potential is in my hands on it. So I'm going to do that real quick. All right, so I messed up on his a little bit too, so I'm messing up on all of them, so it's a consistent. At least I'm consistent. So this one was hitting 15-1, right, which is about 1,000, 1,200 more than the pull I did on my build. It actually hits more around like when I'm playing it a little better, a little cleaner. It's hitting more around like 16k DPS. So again, it's a decent damage increase, but I wanted to talk about the reasons why I don't necessarily like how this build is set up and explain those things. So again, the first thing to notice is that this build compared to when I just played it now versus the more damage leveraged run I did on my setup is only about 800, right? 800 DPS. And so you are not going to feel 800 DPS in open world play pretty much ever. It's just, you're not going to notice it, right? You're just not. It's not something you're going to be able to feel. What you are going to be able to feel is the fun of the gameplay and the pacing. So this is something I wanted to point out about the differences between these two builds. So Heisen has chosen to leverage these more traditional condition damage weapons, right? So you have the pistol from Harbinger, you have dagger offhand, and then you have scepter, which is core necro, but with the curses line is a little stronger, and then you also have a torch from Scourge. And what he also does is to get quickness instead of taking the spite line, he uses this kind of overpowered relic, which is the Chronomancer relic, which any class that has wells like this is using pretty well right now. Because it's not really intended for Necro to use, right? It's the relic of the Chronomancer. It's meant for Chronomancer wells, but it works really well on this Necro build just by happenstance. Um, and so you're using these wells. But the things that I don't like about this build is that while the damage is higher, it's a lot of single target and stationary damage. So so you still have the chill to the bone, and you still have a few decent ranged AoE skills on this build, right? But a lot of them are single target, low target, or kind of slow casting abilities, and then especially the wells, right? As a skill clicker, I really hate wells anyway, but I don't want to let anyone like think that's the reason why I don't like this build. It's mostly because wells are stationary, right? So this is a lot of pulsing damage that you're just popping here in one spot. So if your target moves or a fight's moving or you have multiple enemies that you're fighting, you might have just used all of your damage potential. Like a huge portion of why this build does more damage is because of these wells. How you're using all these powerful DPS wells on top of the single target damage from your autos and yeah, from your autos, and then this ability oppressive collapse. And so when you're fighting mobs, this build isn't going to feel as powerful, even though it does more single target damage. I also personally just think Scepter uh, and Pistol are less fun than Staff and Greatsword, right? So I think they're less fun. Another thing that I think is a detraction from this Lord Hizen build is the fact that these wells are a necessity for the feel of the build to stay intact, and you have to be pretty quick with it, right? So the wells are giving us about 5 3/4 seconds of quickness each, and they're on a collective 25-second cooldown. So pair that with Chill to the Bone, and you're almost exactly at 25 seconds of quickness for 25 seconds slash 30-ish seconds of cooldown. And so you have to be pretty on top of these, and you can't get rid of any of them if you need more reactive utility. So like, let's say I need the condi cleanse, like I want to take Spectral Walk, right? So I want to take Spectral Walk because I'm getting eaten up by condis, and I need more than just this deathly swarm to get rid of them, right? I want something else. If you take this, your quickness is going to suffer, and your damage is going to suffer. Um, if you lose this one, your might's going to suffer. So like, let's say like we just wanted to, instead of this one, we're going to take, so we're take Spectral Walk instead of this, and let's take like Spectral Grasp here, right? All of a sudden, we only have half quickness uptime, and so the feel of the build goes completely to crud when we have it set up this way. So I'm gonna demo it with these skills, and I'm even gonna use Spectral Grasp because it does do damage because it chills. But you'll see how the feel of the build kind of just disintegrates, and its potency goes away when we have to take other stuff on our bar. And then I'm gonna demo mine doing this and show you why it's less impactful on the build I'm recommending to people. See, the damage is actually okay even when we do that, right? As long as you're paying attention to how to play the build when the quickness falls out. But it just feels horrible, right? So the damage goes really low and it feels terrible. Whereas if we switch back to the build I'm playing real quick, right? So if I wanted to take spectral walk, sorry, and spectral grasp, right? I just said them at the same time. My bad. Um, you're gonna see that the feel of the build stays intact, um, and the damage doesn't suffer as much when we do this. So respawn golem, and I'm gonna fight this one real quick. And so you see the damage starts to converge, right? Because the build is more robust, it's more flexible. You can change these utilities, and you're not losing infinite damage, and you're not changing the functionality of the build at all when you make these swaps. And so that's one of the reasons why I think this build is better. Another thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of the differences of the build is just, I mean, just like thematically, I think it's weird that the other build is using like all the different. Here, I'm gonna change these back real fast. Here and then here. Okay. I think it's so like using all these different weapons. It's kind of jarring thematically. I think my build holds up better in terms of just like the roleplay of the class. It feels better. The big thing mechanically, like I'm getting somewhere with it. I'm not just being like a roleplay, like saying like my build's better because it's better for the roleplay. It's more immersive. But it's you're not incentivized to use Shroud on Heisen's build at all. You actually don't want to be in Shroud. Almost like your only reason to go into Shroud on the Heisen build is to do your blind terrify into spin to win combo. And outside of that, you really don't want to be in Shroud, which I think kind of defeats the purpose of playing Reaper. I think if you don't want to be in Shroud at all and you want to run this curses line with the parasitic contagion, um, Scourge and Harbinger just have better builds that more thematically align with their class mechanic, with their specialization mechanic. Uh, Whereas I think this is just convoluted. It's like you're on Reaper because it works well with this death magic line, um, but you don't actually want to play Reaper at all. Like you're literally just here for Deathly Chill and because it's the least offensive on the death magic line and nothing else. And so the last thing I want to talk about is again the biggest thing that I think is that differentiates these two builds is that my build's more fun. I think the weapons are just more fun. I think because it lets you play in Reaper Shroud more, it's more engaging and just a better way to experience this class. Um, and so lastly, I wanted to talk about the weapons. Is that while you might think, oh, well, like you're using bad weapons, which is why your damage is low. It's like this is actually not true. So the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm on the Heisen build right now, right? So I'm on this Heisen build, and he's set it up with these weapons that I don't think are very fun. Lots of single target damage, right? I'm gonna take these off, I'm gonna do something funny here. All right. So what you can see is I'm setting it up with the same stat and sigil combo, but I'm using staff greatsword instead of scepter torch pistol dagger. Here, I'm gonna change the skin on this too real fast. Where is it? Here it is. All right. All right, and so I'm gonna try to do this well. I didn't practice this one very much, so bear with me. But I'm gonna show you what it's like with the staff and the greatsword without changing anything else. All I'm changing is the weapon that I'm using, the staff to staff and greatsword, and let's look at the damage output of this version of Heisen's build. So I just did 1,000 more damage. On the build, I'm not as comfortable that I didn't practice as much. This version of this, so this was 16.1, and you saw the upfront burst is actually pretty crazy. I was hitting like 18 or something on the first window of burst with this greatsword staff setup with Heisen's traits and runes and stuff. Um, but yeah, again, I think the point is that I'm following the fun instead of following what seems optimal. And the ironic thing is that it's actually better to run these fun weapons because these do more AoE damage and they're more fun, and you still have like 95% of the utility you get from running the other set. And so, yeah, so this one's 16.1. When I ran his build with the other weapons, I was getting, what did I hit? I hit like 15.1, but it's really like 16k. So, and I was hitting higher on this build too. So I'm just playing terrible today. But again, this is just a demo like why I think my build is a better fit for open world and for my specific goals for open world. I think Hizen actually does have different goals when he's talking about open world build. He does a lot more like soloing legendaries and bounties and so like just more like solo and group content is more his focus, and so his builds are great for that. But I think they struggle in the departments that I think are most valuable, which are flexibility and fun. And so I wanted to demo why, even though his builds on paper seem better, I think my build is more fun, and I would still recommend uh, my death magic build with the staff and the great sword with again with this setup, with this more chill setup. But again, like I said, you can still get some of the fun of my build and some of the potency of Heisen's build if you still wanted to play Lord Hizen's build, and you could play it with more fun weapons. You could play it with staff greatsword, and you probably like me are gonna do more damage with staff greatsword and be having more fun. So this was just a fun little comparison. Now that some builds are out that I actually do like, again, like I like Heisen's builds on for the most part. Uh, but again, I think I'm trying when I'm doing these build videos, I'm following the fun. That's my primary concern is the build fun. There have been like 10 different builds I've thought about making a video for, and I asked myself, is this build fun? And I was like, it's really not fun. This build isn't fun to play. I wouldn't actually want to play this in open world, and so even though it's strong, I'm actually not going to say anything about it. And so, yeah, so this was just a fun little switch up, just to show like, just all again, all in fun, all just for the sake of understanding and knowledge of these different builds and why they work and why people recommend them and all that stuff. So again, so this is my Reaper build, the Death's Disciple build versus Heisen's Death Magic Condi Reaper build, and I just wanted to showcase it in a controlled environment and demo the strengths and weaknesses of both builds. Again, I think Heisen's build, it's doing a little bit more single target damage, um, and it is going to be better sustain, right? I think Parasitic Contagion is going to trump Soul Reaper in the sustain department, and so you are going to get better sustain, but I do think the build is less fun. I think it doesn't fit thematically with Reaper very well, and you're basically doing everything in your power not to play with Reaper Shroud and not to play any actually fun utilities or anything. Like anytime you make change to his build, you're significantly lowering the potency, which I don't like. And so that's why I just wanted to come in and compare the builds. And so yeah, I'm rambling now, but again, so these are the two builds. I'll try to link the videos to both of them down below. But yep, this is Mandala, and happy Reaper gameplay for everybody. Have fun, pick the build that you like the best. I'm not trying to start a competition, I'm just doing a demo. Anyway, bye.